Alright everyone, let's maybe start on time. It's going to be a casual conversation. It's a presentation, but well, it's going to be casual. I'll try to do that. And the idea is more or less to understand what are the role of longevity and well, we're going to explore in this small talk that I'm going to have in the beginning, Humans 3.0. We're going to think about concepts like superhumans, about immortal cyborgs, digighosts, and even space pirates. So some interesting concepts that then will lead us to the conversation of longevity, because that's the main topic that we're going to be exploring today. By the way, I'm Pedro Heinrich. I am the head of investment startups in Vitalia, one of the co-leaders of the community. So I'm happy to be here today with you to share these, well, interesting ideas, I hope, at least. So, and by the way, I'm going to do a simple overview, and the remaining talks are going to dive deeper into some of these topics with more details. So, just to get a fast overview of what's happening right now, we are going through time. We've been seeing an acceleration regarding evolution. There's 6 epochs based on the recursal theory, and we are seeing that there's exponential growth of the rate of development regarding these first 6 epochs. So it took billions of years for the first principles of physics and chemistry to emerge. Then it took hundreds of millions of years for the first forms of biology to emerge. It took tens of millions of years for the first brains to emerge, and thousands of years for the first forms of technology. And right now what's happening is there's an emergence between biology and technology that is even accelerating even further this trend. And the best way to look at that and the potential impact of this acceleratory rate in evolution is what Max Tegmark calls Life 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Life 1.0 is something simple. It's a product of evolutive pressure. So you have living entities that they are not able to change their hardware, so their physical body, and their mental model, so their software. With humans, we are life form 2.0. We are not yet able to change our hardware, but we are able to change our software. We develop mental models, we develop religion and culture that enable us to interact with the environment and execute change in the world around us. And life 3.0, well, it means that beyond changing the way we think and our mental models, we can change actually our bodies. And the best way to look at that is imagining humans 1.0 as the naked man that appeared after Homo erectus, so the first Homo sapiens as naked. Humans 2.0 is the capacity to get equipment, so we get some loot, we improve our stats. And we're talking about the medieval knight with their big axes and the Harry Potter fan with their wands. Same kind of humans that we develop tool and cultures. And then you have humans 3.0 that you actually are able to bioenhance yourself. And I don't know if you play this game, but I was participating here. I don't know if you recognize the face. And if you don't believe that's me, I have a picture of me prepping before coming into the presentation. So yeah, it's me. So what we are living right now is what Yuval Harari calls an upcoming revolution. That is merging infotech with biotech. So the discovery of the biometric, or the development of the biometric sensor, allow us to translate information from biology into data, then scaling it and merging it with computation power, we're able to hack, and because we understand biology, we're able to hack it. So he states that those that control data are not only going to be able to define the future of humans, but also the future of life itself. So we're living in a really quite interesting time. And some of the accomplishments that manifest that are, for example, Human Genome Project, CRISPR that allow us to start manipulating DNA. You have genomics and bioinformatics. You have the emergence of synthetic bio and gene therapies, and you have the emergence of customized, personalized medicine. So things that are made for us as individuals. And we, from Vitalia, I don't know if you heard of it, we are one of the places in the world that is aiming to tackle some of these emerging challenges. We are the first place in the world where you can actually already do gene therapies and also the only place in the world that legally can do cybernetics. So it's an interesting place to move forward regarding the exploration of this new frontier. We're also using crypto as a lever to expedite the development of our projects and our startups. So let's take a look more or less about some of the interesting character builds that we can implement. And by doing that, I'm going to mention some of the startups that we work with. And imagine that you want to become a superhero. Of course, you can see I'm a fanboy of Henry Cavill. Clearly, that's a superhuman. So right now, there's startups that are already working on some of these features. For example, increased strength. We have some people over there in the corner that are already implementing gene therapies that allow you to have that strengthen your muscle tissues. And you also have Minicircle that are the first approved gene therapy in the world, also in Prospera in Italia.
It's not the first approved gene therapy.
Well, so it's not the first, but it's one of the first. But it's the first one in Prospera.
Yeah.
Thank you for the feedback. You know Vitalia by any chance?
Yeah.
All right. And also we have an interesting startup working with us that right now is focused on gene therapy, but the ultimate goal is to develop gene therapies that tackle cognition, enhance cognition in adults. Bootstrap Bio, we also invested on them. Quite interesting startup. And a new project that is still being cooked, that happened on the last event that we organized in Vitalia, was there was a proposal to cure color blindness. But the interesting use case besides that would be able to move us from this trichromatic approach to vision. So we would be able to increase it to a tetrachromatic. It means practically that we would go from 1 million colors that we can see right now to 100 million. And this is something feasible in the next couple of decades. So if you're interested about any of these superpowers, maybe talk with us. Oh, and most importantly, the most important superpower, hair growth. Of course, we're talking about this one. Really good one. So I was completely bald before I went to Vitalia. You see what happens? So you should join us. I don't know, I'm just suggesting that. Let's talk about cyborgs. So right now we have the first approved clinic for cybernetics, Simian Labs. They popped with our pop-up city this year. So they are mostly working in the early stage is going to be some aesthetic kind of procedure. For example, tattoos that change with music, change color with music. This can be potentially something that's going to be seen in the next couple of years, but I think that the most interesting things would be then implemented to health. For example, CGMs, so continuous glucose monitoring that would be inside of your body, or something that could track, for example, hormonal changes. That could be some of the interesting things that we could implement, or even BCI, so brain-computer interfaces, something like Neuralink. But for example, some of the key challenges with these kind of procedures, so BCIs, for example. So there are some people that are already implanting BCIs on themselves, but they can only use them on clinical trials. There's already the first human with a Neuralink implanted, but once the clinical trial is done, they are forced to remove it. And I met a couple of people already working with BCIs, that maybe, so for something that simply increases your current capabilities, it's alright, I can understand the philosophy, but imagine that you actually need something like that. And there's use cases for intraspinal BCIs that actually make people with mobility issues to have some kind of independency. They become able to move a little bit their bodies. And for us that we don't have any kind of these impairments, it's not a big deal, but for them it is. And imagine being given this gift to lose it after a couple of years because the clinical trial is done. So Vitalia and Prosper allows you to potentially create a new pipeline that you will be able to get the implants there through a clinical trial and keep them if you start in Vitalia and use the data to feed into other clinical trials happening around the world. And also something interesting also emerging in this sphere is a technology and software built on top of these cybernetics. For example, UCAT is a startup that is using BCIs to translate thoughts into speech. So you can start speaking with your mind eventually. They already are doing something with people that are paralyzed and cannot talk. They have some interesting results in this area. So another interesting startup. These are things that already exist and we are trying to leverage by, with proper regulation. So, immortals, we are getting closer to another superpower that is more in line with the topic of longevity. Is immortality possible? No, it's not. But it also is based on how we define immortality. So we don't want immortality because immortality assumes that you won't be able to die. And it has some kind of eternity aspect related to it. So when we talk about immortality, we're mentioning something more like radical life extension. So to be able to live hundreds of years, thousands of years, to be able to choose when to die. Okay, that would be the main goal that we're trying to do over here. You want to be able to not be trapped in the real world. So that's what you're trying to tackle. And there's also pseudo-immortality that talks a little bit about uploading your mind to a machine, but that's another conversation. So based on that, yes, it's possible, probably. But yes, we are bullish on that. And I'm going to give a small overview regarding what are the potential pathways towards immortality. So the next guests are going to get into more details. But there's mainly, there's 3 plans. So you have the biotech approach, basically upgrading the issues that we have with our body. You have the plan B, it's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be alive until we start the problem with biology, so maybe let's freeze ourselves, and you have cryonics. So you win potentially some time, or you just kill yourself, but still there's a hope. There's some probability that you can work with. And then you have the plan C, that if plan A and B are not working, you can still freeze your data. So instead of cryonics, you would do cryptonics. And that would be exploring the data-centric approach that would assume that a potential conscious AGI would emerge and you would feed your data to the AGI and potential would be you. If it's you or it's not you, it's a question that you can create a discussion afterwards, but it's a possibility that should not be ignored, especially because if it fails, the information is still valuable. If you have full control of your data, you can, for example, use it and create an AI that will be the best entity to, if you are frozen, if you come back to life, potentially you are going to be the best person to onboard you to the new world 1,000 years after you were frozen. If plan B doesn't work, you can use still this data to feed current solutions for the biotech approach, and even continuous medicine and preventive medicine by having access to your biometric data, to your biological data, to your digital data under your control instead of being spread across multiple service providers. You could potentially develop solutions that would enable for continuous forms of medicine. So it's useful. Okay? So I'm going to go through some of the main bottlenecks right now regarding the biological aspect, but Tom is going to get deeper into these. And the main bottlenecks for the development of the and by the way, before that, the main solutions regarding biology right now based on Longevity BioTech fellowship are advanced bioengineering, gene therapies and things similar to that, body replacement, so we are a machine, every time a part breaks, we replace it, and also plan B, cryonics and biostasis, you freeze yourselves. But the main bottlenecks to develop these solutions are 3, lack of public data to develop, 2, lack of models. So 1, lack of data to create models, and these are a consequence of lack of funding. So me personally, I don't think that those are the main bottlenecks. The main bottleneck, in my opinion, is the funding, because you see these previous experiences that happened in the past. You just threw money at it, and you were actually able to see amazing progress. So based on the words of the really famous doctor, Dr. Jessie J, she says that it's not about the money, money. Well, she's completely wrong. She doesn't know anything what she's talking about. She's not even a doctor, so ignore her. So basically, there's a possibility of throwing money at the problem can solve something, and if you don't believe it, give me the money and I'll try to do it. Longevity, the LBF organization believes that the number that you would need to solve most of these problems would be something around $250 billion. And that's something closer to the Apollo mission. So yeah, connecting to space, you see, there's connection with space and longevity. And by the way, 250 billions is the same amount that pharma invests every year for research and development. Every year there's $250 billion invested in pharma that could be channeled towards these solutions. Sorry, so you are distracted with the picture, I can see. That could be channeled towards these solutions, but they are challenged. They are focused on solving something that could potentially give you 10 or 20 more years, best case scenario.
So you want to take away the cancer research and put it into longevity instead?
Well, you could do that.
We could do that.
We could do that.
To this model, right?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Or we could just find, for example, billionaires to invest on it. And that could be a possibility, because there's a myth regarding that. People think that billionaires are actually putting a lot of money in longevity. Bullshit. In fact, there's around 6,000 billionaires that represent around $10 trillion, and only around 30 billionaires actually invested something, and the aggregated amount is something around 10 billion, and that's 0.01% of the net worth. So it's almost nothing. So that could be a possibility. So the question becomes, why are we so poor in this industry? Why we're not getting some funding? And these are the three main reasons that we're going to explore later in this conversation with our speakers. First one is public opinion. So most of the billionaires that actually invest on these, they do it in a stealthy manner. Because still, probably as a legacy of our death denial culture, we don't see people that invest in longevity as something useful for humanity. It's something trivial and egocentric, based on most of the opinions, because, well, it makes sense until recently, because if you look at terror management theory, we could not do anything about death until 50 years ago, or 100 years ago. So creating structures like culture and religion that would tackle that would be beneficial for society, so we would not be paralyzed. But the legacy of that is right now that there's potential solutions, we're not looking at it. So one of the potential ways of accelerating the development of biotech solutions is tackling the public opinion aspect. And the second potential problem is regarding ossified forms of research and financing. That if you are looking at DeSci and crypto, we are exploring a little bit of these topics. But we are not going to focus so much on this today, because the DeSci track is going to do it in the next couple of days. Even today it happened a little bit. But one of the consequences of that is that we have a profit maximization model that makes sense to a point. But the consequence of that is that we are mostly focused on low-hanging fruits right now. So we are focused on return on investment by investing on, for example, pharma that has lower risk profile and potential, and the upcoming gains are much more interesting than, for example, longevity. And trying to align define different alignment systems could be interesting. And the third aspect of why this is not happening is regulation. Right now it takes around 10 years and billions of dollars to develop a new drug or therapy. And only 1 out of 10,000 are actually able to come to market. And this is getting even worse and worse every year. Because of the compounding regulation. In fact, there's a law called Eroom's law that is showing that the industry is becoming less cost efficient. And every couple of years, there's a halving of the output of new therapies developed by the same amount of money. So for each $1 billion that you are investing in biotech, every 2 years you are halving the output. So it's a big problem that needs to be tackled. And we are going to talk a little bit about that with Italia and Prospera, and we'll open it for everyone to contribute. So, to close my introduction to the theme, this is our agenda for today. I was talking with Burns before, and it would be interesting potentially to try to connect longevity with DIAC. So maybe the last session we could do a fireside instead of Nicholas presenting by himself. We have a conversation between Nicholas and Burns, or anyone else who wants to join, and we have something more casual where we can explore some of these implications.
I think it might also be good to have the DIAC talk aside of instead of the advocating for longevity, because it's like advocating in a DIAC sense. That could also be a solution.
So I would prefer to do it on the last one, because we invited these guys to talk about this specifically. So yeah, let's see how things go. And right now, let me please ask for an amazing round of applause to invite Pedro into the stage. Round of applause, please.